billionaire CEO invited his ex-wife to his Thanksgiving award ceremony. She arrived with her fiancé, his major investor, who's also expecting a baby with her. "I'm not drinking tonight," she said, declining the champagne with a small shake of her head. Something flickered in his expression, a moment of calculation, of connecting dots. "I see. Congratulations would appear to be in order for more than your engagement." The realization that he had figured out her pregnancy sent a jolt of anxiety through her. This wasn't how she had planned to navigate this particular revelation. "Thank you," she said simply, neither confirming nor denying. His eyes narrowed slightly. "So you're carrying his child while he invests hundreds of millions in my company. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Not everything is about you, Carter. Isn't it? You show up here, after 3 years, pregnant with my biggest investor's baby. Tell me that's not calculated. Have you ever wondered what happens when your past and future collide in one explosive evening? When the man who broke your heart suddenly wants you back in his life just as you're building something beautiful with someone new. What would you do if your powerful ex-husband invited you to witness his greatest triumph, knowing you're pregnant with another man's child? A man who happens to be his newest major investor. This is exactly the situation Cynthia Miller faced when her billionaire ex-husband Carter Blake invited her to his Thanksgiving award ceremony after 3 years of silence. Would she avoid the confrontation or face her past head-on? And what was Carter's true motive behind this unexpected invitation? The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between bills and grocery store flyers like a grenade in a flower bed. Cynthia Miller stood at her kitchen counter, morning sunlight streaming through the windows as she sorted through her mail. Her fingers froze when she recognized the embossed letterhead, Apex Industries, and the precise, authoritative signature at the bottom. Carter Blake, her ex-husband, CEO of one of the country's most valuable tech companies, and the man who had once promised her the world before deciding she no longer fit into his vision of it. The board of directors of Apex Industries requests the honor of your presence at the annual Innovation Excellence Awards. The invitation read in elegant script, honoring Carter Blake, visionary leader and humanitarian of the year. Cynthia's fingers trembled slightly as she set the invitation on her kitchen counter. 3 years since their divorce had been finalized, 3 years of carefully rebuilding her life from the ashes of their marriage, and now this. An unexpected bridge between past and present that felt suspiciously like a trap. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan Sullivan. "Just landed. Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." The tension in her shoulders eased slightly at the sight of his name. Jordan, her fiancé of 6 months. The unexpected joy who had entered her life when she'd finally stopped looking for someone to fill the Carter-shaped hole in her heart. Brilliant, kind, patient Jordan, who had shown her that love didn't have to hurt to be real. The same Jordan who, as fate would have it, had recently become one of Apex Industries' major investors through his venture capital firm. The same Jordan who was now expecting a child with her. A fact the public didn't yet know, but that Carter would inevitably discover at the ceremony if she attended. Cynthia placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. 12 weeks along, their little secret still safely tucked away from the world's prying eyes. She had planned to wait until the traditional 3-month mark before making any announcements, but now Carter's invitation had complicated everything. Why now? After 3 years of silence broken only by necessary legal communications, why would Carter suddenly want her at his crowning achievement? The timing couldn't be coincidental. The ceremony was scheduled for Thanksgiving evening, a holiday that had once been their favorite, filled with traditions they created together during their 8-year marriage. Her phone rang, Jordan's name lighting up the screen. "Hey," she answered, unable to keep the tension from her voice. "What's wrong?" Jordan asked immediately, attuned to her moods even through a simple greeting. "Carter invited me to his awards ceremony." A brief silence. "The humanitarian of the year thing?" "Yes, the one you're attending as an investor." Another pause. "I see." Jordan's voice was measured, careful. "And how do you feel about that?" It was one of the things she loved most about him. His immediate concern for her feelings rather than imposing his own reaction. So different from Carter, who had always decided what they should both think about any given situation. confused, suspicious. Cynthia sighed, leaning against the counter. It feels like some kind of power play, but I can't figure out the angle. Maybe there isn't one, Jordan suggested. Maybe he's genuinely trying to be civil. Cynthia laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. You don't know Carter like I do. Everything is calculated. Everything has a purpose. Then we figure out the purpose together. Jordan's voice softened. But first I need to know, do you want to go? Forget Carter. Forget me. Forget everything else. What do you want? The question hung in the air between them. What did she want? To avoid Carter entirely would be the easiest path. But something inside her rebelled at the thought of continuing to organize her life around avoiding her ex-husband, of giving him that much power over her choices. I want to go, she said finally, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. With you. As us. Then that's what we'll do. The smile was evident in Jordan's voice. Together. But the pregnancy is our news to share when and how we choose, Jordan finished firmly. If that happens to be at Carter Blake's award ceremony, so be it. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after a relationship that diminished you, hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Your story matters, and sometimes the greatest courage is in facing your past while standing firmly in your present. After they hung up, Cynthia found herself staring at the invitation again. Memories flooded back, of the ambitious young entrepreneur she'd fallen in love with at 24, of the man who had grown increasingly distant as his company expanded, of the husband who had ultimately decided that she was an impediment to his vision rather than a partner in it. Your lack of understanding about what it takes to build something of this magnitude is becoming a problem, Carter had told her during one of their final arguments, his voice cold with disappointment. I need someone who elevates my work, not questions it. Questioning isn't undermining, Carter, she had responded, fighting back tears. It's how we improve, how we grow. I'm trying to help. Help, he had laughed, the sound cutting through her like glass. You think asking why I need to work on Thanksgiving is helping? You think suggesting I delegate more is supporting my vision? That's not help, Cynthia. That's sabotage wrapped in concern. The words had cut deeper than any physical blow could have. After 8 years of supporting his dreams, of rearranging her own life and career to accommodate his ambitions, of loving him through failures and successes, she had somehow become insufficient. A liability rather than an asset. The divorce had been swift, clinical, and devastatingly public. Carter had controlled the narrative with the same precision he controlled everything else, painting himself as the dedicated visionary whose marriage had unfortunately become collateral damage to his world-changing mission. Cynthia had been reduced to a footnote in his story, the wife who couldn't keep up, who didn't understand greatness. She had retreated from the spotlight, focusing on rebuilding her consulting business and healing the wounds that ran deeper than she had initially realized. It had taken nearly 2 years before she could hear Carter's name without feeling that familiar twist of pain in her chest. And then Jordan had appeared at a climate technology conference where she was presenting, his thoughtful questions during her panel leading to coffee, then dinner, then a connection that had surprised them both with its intensity and ease. What struck me most about your presentation, he had told her over that first coffee, was how you emphasized the human element in technological solutions. That's rare in our industry. Most tech people forget that their innovations are meant to serve actual humans, she had replied, surprised by his genuine interest. Exactly. We get so caught up in what we can build that we forget to ask if we should, or how it will actually impact lives. His smile had been warm, his eyes attentive in a way that made her feel truly seen. I'd love to hear more about your approach. Maybe over dinner. Jordan, whose wealth matched Carter's but who wore it differently, like a comfortable coat rather than armor. Jordan, who asked for her opinion and actually listened to the answer. Jordan, who had looked at her one evening 6 months into their relationship and said, I think I've been waiting for you my whole life, with such simple honesty that she had burst into tears. Now, standing in her kitchen with Carter's invitation in one hand and her other hand still resting protectively over their growing child, Cynthia made her decision. She would attend the ceremony not as Carter Blake's ex-wife, but as Cynthia Miller, successful consultant, soon-to-be mother, and partner to a man who saw her value without qualification. She picked up her phone and typed a response to the RSVP email. "Thank you for the invitation. I will attend with my fiancé, Jordan Sullivan. Send. No going back now." The week leading up to the ceremony passed in a blur of client meetings and prenatal appointments. Cynthia found herself standing before her closet on Thanksgiving evening, studying her options with critical eyes. The emerald green gown she finally selected was elegant without being flashy. The empire waist and flowing fabric concealing her barely there bump while flattering her figure. "You look stunning," Jordan said from the doorway of their bedroom, already dressed in his tuxedo. His warm brown eyes held nothing but admiration as he crossed the room to stand behind her, their reflections merging in the mirror. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, meeting his gaze in the reflection. "It's not too late to back out." Jordan's hands came to rest gently on her shoulders. "I'm sure about you," he said simply. "Everything else is just details." The Apex Industries headquarters dominated the city skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Carter had designed it that way deliberately, a physical manifestation of his ambition, visible from every corner of the city he had chosen as his empire's base. As their car pulled up to the entrance, Cynthia felt a flutter of anxiety that had nothing to do with morning sickness. She smoothed the fabric of her emerald green gown, chosen carefully to flatter her figure while revealing nothing of her condition. "Ready?" Jordan asked, taking her hand. In the soft light of the car, his familiar features, the kind brown eyes, the strong jaw softened by his easy smile, steadied her. He looked impeccable in his tuxedo, every inch the successful venture capitalist, but it was the warmth in his expression that truly grounded her. "As I'll ever be," she replied, squeezing his hand. The moment they stepped onto the red carpet, camera flashes erupted around them. Though Jordan's firm had made headlines with its substantial investment in Apex, this was their first major public appearance together. Cynthia could already imagine the headlines. Blake's ex moves on with major investor. They moved through the gauntlet of photographers with practiced smiles, neither rushing nor lingering. Jordan's hand remained at the small of her back, a gentle, constant reassurance. Inside, the grand atrium had been transformed into an elegant reception hall. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathered elite of the business world, their murmured conversations creating a gentle hum beneath the string quartet playing in the corner. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with the fragrance of white lilies arranged in towering vases throughout the space. "Cynthia Miller." A familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." She turned to find Vanessa Winters, Apex's chief operating officer and Carter's right hand for the past decade. The woman who had been present for both the rise of Apex and the fall of Cynthia's marriage, always watching with those calculating eyes. Tonight, she was impeccable in a tailored black dress, her silver hair swept into a sleek chignon. "Vanessa," Cynthia acknowledged with a polite smile. "Congratulations on the company's success." "Thank you." Vanessa's gaze shifted to Jordan, a flicker of something. Surprise? Concern? Crossing her features before her professional mask slipped back into place. "Mr. Sullivan, the board was quite impressed with your firm's vision during our last meeting." "The feeling is mutual," Jordan replied smoothly. "Apex's work in sustainable technology aligns perfectly with our investment priorities." The subtext was clear. This is business, not personal. But Cynthia knew better than most that with Carter Blake, the line between business and personal had always been non-existent. "Carter will be pleased you both could attend," Vanessa said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "He's currently greeting the mayor, but I'm sure he'll find you soon." As Vanessa moved away to welcome other guests, Jordan leaned close to Cynthia's ear. "Is it my imagination? Or did she just issue a warning?" "Not your imagination," Cynthia murmured, accepting a glass of sparkling water from a passing server. "Vanessa has always been protective of Carter. She probably thinks we're here to cause trouble. Aren't we?" Jordan's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Just by existing as we are?" The comment startled a genuine laugh from Cynthia, easing some of the tension that had been building in her shoulders. I suppose we are. If you've ever had to face someone who once controlled your life while standing in your newfound strength, give this video a thumbs up. Sometimes the most powerful statement is simply showing up as your authentic self. They circulated through the crowd, stopping occasionally to chat with familiar faces from the business world. Cynthia was acutely aware of the curious glances, the whispered conversations that paused as they approached. She had expected this, had prepared for it, but the reality still prickled uncomfortably against her skin. Cynthia, the voice she would recognize anywhere, even after 3 years. Deep, authoritative, with that particular cadence that had once made her heart race for very different reasons. She turned slowly, Jordan's solid presence beside her like an anchor. Carter Blake stood before them, as commanding in person as his reputation suggested. At 42, he remained strikingly handsome. His dark hair now threaded with distinguished silver at the temples. His tall frame impeccably suited. Success had only enhanced the natural confidence he had always possessed, giving him an aura of untouchable authority. But Cynthia knew the man beneath the myth, knew the insecurities he hid behind that perfect facade, the driving fear of inadequacy that pushed him to conquer ever higher mountains. Carter, she replied, proud of how steady her voice remained. Congratulations on the award. His gaze held hers for a moment before shifting to Jordan, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Sullivan, I didn't realize you two knew each other. The deliberate omission of their engagement, which had been mentioned in her RSVP and had appeared in business publications, was not lost on Cynthia. We met at the Climate Innovation Summit last year, Jordan said easily, extending his hand. Congratulations on the recognition. Your work on renewable energy infrastructure has been groundbreaking. Carter accepted the handshake, his expression neutral. Thank you. Your firm's investment has been instrumental in accelerating our timeline. The conversation was perfectly civil, utterly professional, and charged with undercurrents that threatened to pull Cynthia under. She could feel Carter's attention returning to her even as he spoke to Jordan, assessing, calculating. You look well, Carter said finally, addressing her directly again. Consulting business still thriving? Very much so, she replied. My client list has grown considerably in the past year. I'm not surprised. You always had valuable insights. Pause, weighted with unspoken history. When you chose to share them, and there it was, the first crack in the polite veneer, the hint of the resentments that still simmered beneath the surface. Carter had always viewed her reluctance to fully integrate into his business life as a personal rejection rather than a desire to maintain her own identity. I still share them, Cynthia replied evenly, with clients who value both the insights and the person offering them. A muscle twitched in Carter's jaw, a tell she remembered well from their marriage, a sign that her words had found their mark. Before he could respond, a chime sounded, signaling guests to move into the main ballroom for dinner and the award presentation. We should continue this conversation later, Carter said, his tone making it clear this was not merely a suggestion. I'm seated at the head table, of course, but I've arranged for you both to be at table 3, close to the stage. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to make sure you had a good view. As he walked away to greet other guests, Jordan leaned close to Cynthia. Is it just me? Or did that feel like chess opening moves? That's exactly what it was, Cynthia confirmed, her mind racing to understand Carter's strategy. He's positioning pieces, but I can't see the full board yet. Well, Jordan said, guiding her toward the ballroom with a gentle hand at her waist. Whatever game he's playing, remember we're not obligated to play by his rules. The ballroom was a masterpiece of understated luxury, with tables arranged around a central stage where Carter would later accept his award. Massive arrangements of white roses and orchids adorned each table, their subtle fragrance filling the air. The lighting was soft and flattering, designed to make everyone look their best in the inevitable photographs that would document the evening. As promised, their table was prominently positioned, ensuring they would be in Carter's line of sight throughout the evening. They were seated with other investors and their partners, the conversation flowing easily around topics of business trends and market projections. Cynthia participated when appropriate, but part of her attention remained fixed on Carter at the head table, surrounded by board members and city officials. He looked completely in his element, commanding attention without apparent effort. It had been one of the first things that had attracted her to him, that natural magnetism, the way he could make everyone in a room feel that his vision was the only one worth pursuing. "You're staring," Jordan murmured, his hand finding hers under the table. "Sorry," she whispered back. "Just processing. Take all the time you need." His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "I'm right here." The simple reassurance centered her again. This was why she loved Jordan. His ability to support without smothering, to understand that her complicated feelings about Carter didn't diminish what they had built together. Dinner progressed through multiple elegant courses, each more exquisite than the last. Cynthia ate carefully, mindful of her pregnancy and the nausea that still occasionally surfaced at unexpected moments. As dessert was being served, the lights dimmed slightly, and the chairman of Apex's board approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we gather tonight not only to celebrate Apex Industries' remarkable achievements this past year, but to honor the visionary leader who has guided our company from a small startup to a global force for innovation and positive change." The chairman continued with a glowing introduction, highlighting Carter's business acumen, his philanthropic initiatives, and his unwavering commitment to creating technology that serves humanity. Cynthia listened with a mixture of emotions, pride for the genuine accomplishments, cynicism about the carefully crafted narrative that omitted the human cost of Carter's single-minded ambition. When Carter finally took the stage, the applause was thunderous. He stood at the podium, the perfect picture of humble gratitude, waiting for the room to quiet before speaking. "Thank you for this tremendous honor," he began, his voice resonating through the ballroom. "When I founded Apex 15 years ago, I had a simple vision: to create technology that would solve real problems and improve lives. What I didn't have was a roadmap for how to get there." His gaze swept the room, pausing briefly on Cynthia. "The journey has been anything but straightforward. There have been failures alongside the successes, sacrifices alongside the gains. I've learned that true innovation requires not just vision but resilience, the ability to adapt when reality doesn't match your expectations." Something in his tone made Cynthia sit straighter, a familiar prickle of awareness traveling down her spine. This didn't sound like Carter's usual polished rhetoric. "I've also learned," he continued, "that success comes with blind spots. When you're focused on changing the world, it's easy to miss the changes happening right in front of you, in the relationships that matter most." The room had gone completely still, the audience sensing they were witnessing something more intimate than the standard acceptance speech. This award recognizes humanitarian achievement, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that my own humanity has sometimes fallen short of the ideals Apex represents. Carter's gaze found Cynthia again, lingering this time. "To those who have paid the price for my ambition, I offer not excuses but recognition. Your contributions to my journey, whether acknowledged at the time or not, helped create whatever good Apex has brought to the world." Cynthia felt Jordan's hand tighten around hers as Carter continued, his words landing like stones in still water, creating ripples that reached far beyond the elegant ballroom. "As we celebrate tonight, I'm reminded that true innovation isn't just about technology or business models," Carter said, his voice taking on a quality Cynthia had rarely heard during their marriage, something approaching genuine reflection. "It's about evolving as human beings, about recognizing our mistakes and striving to do better." He raised his award slightly. "I accept this honor with gratitude and humility, knowing that my work, our work, is far from finished. Thank you." The applause that followed was enthusiastic but tinged with a certain bewilderment, as if the audience wasn't quite sure what to make of this unexpectedly vulnerable version of Carter Blake. As he returned to his seat, Cynthia could see board members leaning in to speak with him, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Well," Jordan murmured, "that wasn't the speech of someone just collecting another trophy for his shelf." "No," Cynthia agreed, her mind racing to decode Carter's true intentions. "It wasn't. If you believe that genuine growth requires acknowledging our mistakes, comment below with a time when an apology made all the difference. Sometimes the most powerful words are simply, "I was wrong." The formal program concluded shortly after, transitioning to a more relaxed reception with music and mingling. As guests began to circulate between tables, Cynthia excused herself to find the restroom, needing a moment alone to gather her thoughts. The hallway leading to the powder room was quieter, the sounds of the reception fading with each step. She welcomed the brief respite from the emotional intensity of the evening. In the elegant powder room, she stood before the mirror, studying her reflection. The woman who looked back at her bore little resemblance to the one who had left Carter's world 3 years ago. That woman had been hollowed out by years of subtle diminishment, of being told her perspectives were valid but somehow always less important than his vision. This woman, with clear eyes and straight shoulders, had rebuilt herself piece by piece. The door opened, and Vanessa Winters entered, their eyes meeting in the mirror's reflection. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence filled with unspoken history. "Quite a speech," Vanessa said finally, moving to stand at the sink beside Cynthia. "Not what we expected from him." "We?" Cynthia asked, turning to face her directly. Vanessa's perfectly manicured hands smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her tailored black dress. "The board. The executive team." Pause. "Those of us who've been cleaning up his emotional messes since you left." The bluntness was surprising, though Cynthia had always suspected Vanessa harbored resentment toward her. "I wasn't aware my departure created messes requiring cleanup. You have no idea." Vanessa's laugh held no humor. "Carter Blake, the great visionary, spent 6 months after your divorce making decisions that nearly tanked 3 major product lines. Drinking too much, missing critical meetings." She shook her head. "We managed to keep it out of the press, but it was touch and go for a while." Cynthia absorbed this information with genuine surprise. The divorce settlement had been handled through lawyers. Her only glimpses of Carter had been carefully orchestrated public appearances where he had seemed entirely unaffected by their separation. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. Vanessa applied fresh lipstick with practiced precision before answering. "Because you're here with Jordan Sullivan, whose firm just invested $300 million in our expansion plans." Her gaze was sharp, assessing. "And because Carter has been different since he heard about your engagement. More focused, more driven, like he has something to prove." "Our relationship isn't about Carter," Cynthia said firmly. "It never has been. Maybe not for you." Vanessa capped her lipstick. "But Carter doesn't exist in a world where he's not the central character. You should remember that before whatever happens next." With those cryptic words, she exited, leaving Cynthia alone with her reflection once more and a growing sense that the evening was building toward something she couldn't yet see. She took a deep breath, centering herself before returning to the reception. When she emerged from the powder room, the hallway was no longer empty. Carter stood by a large window overlooking the city, his back to her, silhouetted against the glittering skyline. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, and for a brief moment, his expression was unguarded. A mixture of vulnerability and determination that reminded her of the younger man she had first fallen in love with. "I was hoping to catch you alone," he said, his voice quieter than it had been during their earlier exchange. "There's something I wanted to say without an audience." Cynthia approached cautiously, maintaining a careful distance. "I'm listening." Carter studied her for a moment, as if memorizing her features. "You look happy," he said finally. "It suits you." The simple observation, delivered without his usual calculation, caught her off guard. "I am happy," she confirmed. He nodded, turning back to the window. "I meant what I said in my speech, about blind spots, about the price others paid for my ambition." His reflection in the glass looked pensive, almost sad. "Especially you." Cynthia stood beside him, both of them gazing out at the city they had once planned to conquer together. "Why now, Carter? After 3 years of silence, why this sudden acknowledgement?" He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice held a rawness she had rarely heard from him. Therapy, he said with a self-deprecating smile. Board mandated after some incidents following our divorce. Turns out even billionaire CEOs can be forced to confront their demons when they start making million-dollar mistakes. Vanessa mentioned something about that, Cynthia said carefully. Did she? Carter's smile turned rueful. Vanessa's loyalty is one of her greatest assets. She protected me from myself during that time. He turned to face Cynthia directly. But that's not why I invited you tonight. Or not entirely. When she returned to the reception, she found Jordan engaged in conversation with several other investors, his easy charm evident in their animated discussion. Rather than interrupt, she paused at the edge of the room, taking in the scene, the powerful figures in their formal attire, the subtle hierarchies visible in who spoke to whom, the careful dance of influence and connection that had once been her daily reality as Carter's wife. They seemed impressed with him. Carter had appeared beside her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. He offered one to her. I'm not drinking tonight, she said, declining with a small shake of her head. Something flickered in his expression, a moment of calculation of connecting dots. I see. Congratulations would appear to be in order for more than your engagement. The realization that he had figured out her pregnancy sent a jolt of anxiety through her. This wasn't how she had planned to navigate this particular revelation. Thank you, she said simply, neither confirming nor denying. Carter's gaze remained on Jordan across the room. He's built quite a reputation in venture capital, ethical investments, long-term thinking. The anti-shark, they call him. That's fairly accurate, Cynthia acknowledged, watching Carter carefully. Jordan believes business can be both profitable and humane. As do I, Carter countered, a hint of the old defensiveness creeping into his tone. Apex's entire mission is built around sustainable innovation. Yes, but for Jordan, the humanity extends to how he treats the people around him, not just the end users of the technology. The words slipped out before she could temper them, carrying more of her unresolved feelings than she had intended to reveal. Carter was silent for a moment, swirling the champagne in his glass. Your RSVP mentioned an engagement. When's the wedding? Spring, she answered. A small ceremony, just close friends and family. Spring babies are nice, he said quietly, confirming he had indeed deduced her condition. Fresh starts all around. There was something in his voice, not quite bitterness, not quite resignation, that made Cynthia look at him more closely. The perfect facade had slipped just slightly, revealing glimpses of the man she had once known intimately. Why did you invite me tonight, Carter? She asked directly. After 3 years of radio silence. Why now? He met her gaze, and for a moment, she saw past the CEO to the person beneath. Complex, flawed, human in ways he rarely allowed himself to be seen. I told myself it was professional courtesy, given Sullivan's investment, he said finally, that it would be awkward if I didn't acknowledge the connection. A self-deprecating smile touched his lips. But I've been working with a therapist board mandated after some incidents following our divorce. One of the things I'm learning is to be honest about my motivations, especially with myself. He looked out over the crowded reception. The truth is, I wanted to see you, to see if you were happy, to see if what I said in my speech could possibly begin to address what happened between us. The admission hung in the air between them, more genuine than anything he had offered during the painful unraveling of their marriage. Are you? He asked, turning back to her. Happy? The question was simple but loaded with history, with the weight of what they had been to each other and what they had lost. Cynthia considered deflecting, offering the kind of polite, surface-level response that would be appropriate for an ex-spouse at a public event. Instead, she chose honesty. Yes, I am. Not in the way I once thought happiness would look, but deeply, genuinely happy. Carter nodded slowly, absorbing this. Good. That's good. He hesitated, then added, I'm not there yet, happy, but I'm working toward something that might eventually resemble it. Across the room, Jordan glanced over, his expression questioning. Cynthia gave him a small smile of reassurance. He's watching out for you, Carter observed, making sure I'm not upsetting you. That's what partners do, Cynthia said. They pay attention. They notice. The implied criticism wasn't lost on Carter. I deserved that, he acknowledged. Among other things. A server approached, informing Carter that the mayor was looking for him. He nodded in acknowledgement before turning back to Cynthia. I should go. Duty calls as always. He paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. For what it's worth, I am sorry, Cynthia. Not just for how things ended, but for how they were even when they seemed good. You deserved better than what I was capable of giving then. Before she could respond, he was moving away, seamlessly transitioning back into his role as the celebrated CEO, leaving her with the echo of an apology she had never expected to hear. Jordan appeared at her side moments later. Everything okay? Yes, she said, surprised to find it was true. Just closure, I think. Or the beginning of it. He studied her face. Want to get out of here? We've made our appearance. Checked the diplomatic box. The offer was tempting, but Cynthia found herself shaking her head. Actually, I'd like to stay a bit longer. There are some people I want to reconnect with. She smiled up at him. Is that okay? Of course. Jordan's hand found the small of her back, warm and steady. Whatever you need. As they moved through the reception together, Cynthia felt a strange sense of worlds merging. Her past with Carter, her present and future with Jordan, all existing in the same space without the catastrophic collision she had feared. There was pain in revisiting what had been, certainly, but also an unexpected liberation in confronting it directly rather than allowing it to remain a shadowy presence in her new life. For more stories about finding your true worth and writing your own life story, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. I share a new inspiring story every week that will touch your heart and remind you of what truly matters in life. The evening continued, conversations flowing around them like water around stones. Cynthia found herself speaking with former colleagues, reconnecting with people she had once considered friends before the divorce had redrawn social boundaries. To her surprise, many seemed genuinely pleased to see her thriving, their warmth suggesting that perhaps Carter's narrative about their separation hadn't been as universally accepted as she had feared. You were always too independent for him, one of Apex's senior engineers told her quietly during a brief conversation. Some of us admired that about you. Later, as they prepared to leave, she caught sight of Carter across the room, deep in conversation with an elderly board member. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, their eyes meeting one final time. No words were exchanged, no gestures made, but something passed between them. An acknowledgement of what had been, what was lost, and what might still be healed. Not as husband and wife, but as two people who had once shared a vision, however imperfectly realized. Outside, the November air was crisp with the promise of winter, the city skyline glittering against the night sky. Jordan wrapped his coat around her shoulders as they waited for their car. So, he said, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. That was Carter Blake. That was Carter Blake, she confirmed, leaning into his warmth. Impressive man, Jordan acknowledged. Complicated. Yes. Cynthia looked up at the towering Apex headquarters, Carter's monument to his ambition. He is both of those things. And yet, Jordan said softly, turning her to face him, you're here with me. The simple statement held no insecurity, no demand for reassurance, just a quiet wonder at the paths that had led them to each other. I am, she agreed, rising on tiptoes to kiss him gently, exactly where I want to be. As their car arrived, Cynthia took one last look at the gleaming tower behind them. For years, it had represented everything she had lost. The future she had planned, the man she had loved, the life she had built. Now, it was simply a building, impressive but no longer intimidating, part of a city skyline that contained countless other stories, including her own still unfolding narrative. They settled into the back seat, Jordan's hand finding hers in the darkness. Home? He asked. Cynthia placed their joined hands over her stomach, where their child grew, connecting past to future in the most fundamental way. Home, she agreed. As the car pulled away from Apex Industries, Cynthia felt the weight of unresolved history lifting slightly from her shoulders. The evening had not provided perfect closure. Life rarely did. But it had offered something perhaps more valuable. The chance to see her past through the lens of her present strength rather than her former vulnerability. Carter would always be part of her story, just as she would always be part of his. But tonight had confirmed what she had been learning over the past 3 years. That her story was her own to write, with chapters yet to come that had nothing to do with Carter Blake or the world he had built. The next chapter was already beginning, with Jordan, with their child, with the life they were creating together. A life built not on dazzling ambition or world-changing vision, but on something far more revolutionary in its quiet way. The daily choice to see each other clearly, to listen deeply, to love without diminishment. As they drove through the city toward home, Cynthia felt the baby flutter within her. Too early for a true kick, just the whisper of a presence making itself known. A reminder that even as the past was acknowledged, the future continued to unfold, moment by moment, choice by choice, love by love. And for tonight, at least, that was enough. If the story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Remember, sometimes the greatest courage isn't in avoiding your past, but in facing it with the strength of who you've become. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison reminding you that your story is still being written, and the most beautiful chapters may be yet to come.